Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The story of Prophet Muhammad is not just history, it is the eternal message of the Quran alive for every generation. The struggles, sacrifices, and victories of the Prophet point to one conclusion: true success is only by holding firmly to the rope of Allah, the Quran. 1400 years ago, the world was lost in ignorance. Arabia, though proud of its lineage and poetry, was drowned in idol worship, tribal pride, oppression of the weak, and neglect of justice. Women were treated as property, or even buried alive at birth. The poor were crushed, slaves humiliated, and the strong ruled without mercy. It was in this very society that Allah chose Muhammad ibn Abdullah as his final messenger. A man known as Al-Amin, the trustworthy, pure in character, and loved even by his enemies for his honesty. His mission was not personal fame or wealth, it was to deliver the greatest gift, the Quran, divine guidance for all humanity until the day of judgment. Allah says, "Greater than, it is He who has sent His messenger with guidance and the religion of truth, to make it prevail over all religion, even though the disbelievers dislike it." Surah As-Saf 61:9. The first revelation, the beginning of light. Muhammad used to retreat to the cave of Hira, reflecting on the state of his people and searching for truth. At the age of 40, in Ramadan, he received the first revelation. The angel Gabriel appeared with the command that would change history. Greater than, read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. Surah Al-Alaq 96, 1-5. These verses laid the foundation, knowledge, reflection, and faith in the Creator. The very first command of Islam was, read, symbolizing enlightenment after centuries of darkness. Terrified, the Prophet rushed home, trembling, and was comforted by his noble wife Khadijah R.A. She assured him, "By Allah, Allah will never disgrace you. You uphold family ties, help the poor, honor guests, and support the truth." This shows us a lesson. When Allah chooses someone for a mission, He prepares their heart with goodness long before the task begins. The silent call, faith in the shadows. For the first 3 years, the call to Islam remained private. The Prophet invited close family and trusted friends. Khadijah Ra was the first believer, the pillar of his support. Abu Bakr R.A., his closest friend, accepted without hesitation. Ali ibn Abi Talib R.A., the young cousin, embraced Islam with youthful zeal. Zayd ibn Haritha R.A., a freed slave, also stood firm. Through them, others like Uthman ibn Affan, Sayd ibn Abi Waqqas, and Abdur Rahman ibn Awf Ra accepted Islam. The Quran during this time focused on Tawheed, oneness of Allah, the reality of the hereafter, and moral purification. Verses revealed in Makkah were short, powerful, and poetic, capturing the hearts of listeners, even those who rejected. Allah says, "Greater than, and warn your closest relatives." Surah Ash-Shu'ara 26, 214. This marked the shift from private dua to a more open call. Open declaration, Mount Safa. One day, the Prophet climbed Mount Safa and called the Quraysh. The entire tribe gathered, expecting important news. He asked them, "If I told you an army is approaching from behind this hill, would you believe me?" They replied, "Yes, for we have never known you to lie." He then declared, "I am sent to you as a warner before a severe punishment. Save yourselves from the fire. I cannot protect you before Allah." This was the turning point. While some mocked, others feared the truth of his words. Abu Lahab, his uncle, shouted, "May you perish. Is this why you gathered us?" In response, Allah revealed the powerful Surah Al-Masad, condemning Abu Lahab and his wife to eternal disgrace. Persecution begins, trials of faith. As Islam spread, the Quraysh felt threatened. Their wealth, idols, and power were at stake. They began torturing the weak. Bilal ibn Rabah R.A., the Abyssinian slave, was dragged on the burning sands with a rock on his chest. Yet he kept repeating, "Ahad, Ahad, one God, one God. Yasser and Sumaya, were brutally martyred, becoming the first martyrs of Islam. Many Muslims were beaten, starved, and humiliated. Through all this, the Quran gave comfort. Greater than, do not think Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers do. He only delays them until a day when eyes will stare in horror. Surah Ibrahim 14:42. The Prophet himself was mocked as a poet, magician, and madman. They threw filth on him, called him names, and plotted to silence him. Yet he remained patient, always answering with Quranic words of wisdom. Migration to Abyssinia, a safe haven. When persecution grew unbearable, the Prophet advised some Muslims to migrate to Abyssinia, Ethiopia, a land ruled by a just Christian king, the Negus Najashi. There, the Quraysh tried to convince the king to return the Muslims. But when Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, recited verses from Surah Maryam about the miraculous birth of Isa, Jesus, the king's eyes filled with tears. He said, "This and what Jesus brought come from the same source." This event showed the universal truth of the Quran. It touched even hearts outside Arabia. The boycott, a test of patience. The Quraysh, frustrated, enforced a social and economic boycott on Muslims. They were exiled to a valley called Shib Abi Talib, where they suffered hunger for 3 years. Children cried from starvation, leaves and leather were eaten for survival. Yet, the Prophet encouraged patience. The Quran reminded them, greater than, or do you think that you will enter paradise while there has not yet come to you the like of that which came to those who passed away before you? They were afflicted with poverty and hardship and were shaken until even the messenger and those who believed with him said, "When will the help of Allah come?" Surely, the help of Allah is near. Surah Al-Baqarah 2, 214. Year of sorrow. Soon after the boycott ended, the Prophet faced 2 personal tragedies. The death of his beloved wife Khadijah, his greatest supporter. The death of Abu Talib, his protective uncle. This year was known as al-Huzn, the year of sorrow. Without support, persecution worsened. Seeking new opportunities, he traveled to Ta'if, but its people rejected him harshly, stoning him until his feet bled. In that moment of despair, he raised his hands in dua. O Allah, to you I complain of my weakness, my helplessness, and my lowliness before men. This shows us that even in the darkest times, the believer turns only to Allah. The night journey, Isra and Miraj. To console his beloved Prophet, Allah granted a miraculous journey. In one night, the Prophet traveled from Makkah to Jerusalem, Isra, and then ascended through the heavens, Miraj. He met previous prophets, saw paradise and hell, and was brought close to Allah. The gift of 5 daily prayers was given to the Ummah during this journey. It was a spiritual strength for Muslims, teaching that no matter what happens, prayer connects them directly to their Lord. The Quran's role in Makkah. The revelations in Makkah focused on building faith, iman, belief in Allah, angels, books, prophets, and the hereafter. Moral purity, honesty, justice, kindness to orphans and the poor. Hope, consoling the oppressed with promises of paradise. Every verse gave the believers strength. The Quran was their shield, their comfort, and their guide. The Hijra and the birth of the Islamic State in Madinah. After 13 years of hardship in Makkah, the message of Islam was firmly planted in the hearts of a small but strong group of believers. Yet the Quraysh's persecution left no space for growth. Allah then opened a new door, the city of Yathrib, later known as Madinah al-Munawwara, the enlightened city. Here, Islam would not just be a belief hidden in hearts, it would become a society, a system, and a civilization, guided by the Quran. Allah says, greater than, and those who have believed and emigrated and struggled in the cause of Allah, and those who gave shelter and aided, they are the true believers. For them is forgiveness and noble provision. Surah Al-Anfal 8:74. The Pledge of Aqaba, Seeds of Change. During the pilgrimage season, people from Yathrib heard the Prophet reciting Quran. They were touched deeply and returned with Islam in their hearts. The next year, they brought more people, pledging to support him. This was known as the Pledge of Aqaba. They promised to worship Allah alone, to abandon idol worship, to protect the Prophet as they would protect their own families. This marked the turning point. Islam would soon find a home. The Hijra of migration, a journey of sacrifice. When Quraysh realized Islam was spreading to Madinah, they plotted to assassinate the Prophet. But Allah protected him. On that night, he left Makkah with Abu Bakr, R.A. They hid in the cave of Thar as enemies hunted them. Abu Bakr, worried, but the Prophet reassured him. Do not grieve, indeed Allah is with us. Surah At-Tawbah 9:40. This verse became a timeless reminder for all believers. When you trust Allah, you are never alone. Finally, they reached Madinah, welcomed with joy. Children sang, Tala al-Badru, Elena, the full moon has risen upon us. Islam now had a base. The Brotherhood, building a united community. One of the Prophet's first actions in Madinah was to establish brotherhood muwakah between the Muhajirin migrants and Ansar helpers. The Ansar shared their wealth, homes, and hearts. The Muhajirin, though leaving everything behind, carried faith and determination. The Qur'an praised this unity. And those who had settled in the city and had embraced the faith before them love those who emigrated to them and find not any desire in their hearts for what the emigrants were given but give them preference over themselves, even though they are in privation. Surah Al-Hashr 59:9. This brotherhood is a lesson for us. True faith is not just belief, but sacrifice and compassion. The first constitution, justice for all. The Prophet also drafted a Charter of Madinah, considered one of the earliest constitutions in history. It granted rights and duties to Muslims, Jews, and non-Muslims, protection of life and property, freedom of religion, but loyalty to the state, justice for all, regardless of tribe or status. This showed the Quran's vision. Islam was not just a private belief but a complete system of justice and peace. Establishing Salah in unity. In Madinah, Islam blossomed openly. The Adhan call to prayer was established, calling believers 5 times a day to gather. The Prophet built Masjid Quba and later Masjid an-Nabawi, the spiritual heart of the Ummah. Prayer became the backbone of the Muslim community, as the Quran declared. Indeed, prayer has been decreed upon the believers a decree of specified times. Surah An-Nisa 4:103. The Quran's guidance in war and peace. Soon, enemies threatened the young Muslim community. The Quran guided them in every step. Battle of Badr, victory against all odds. In the second year, after Hijrah, the Muslims faced the Quraysh at Badr. Muslims, 313, poorly armed. Quraysh, 1,000, heavily equipped. Yet Allah granted victory, proving that faith and patience are stronger than numbers. How many times has a small group overcome a large group by permission of Allah? And Allah is with the patient. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:249. Battle of Uhud, lessons of obedience. At Uhud, Muslims initially gained advantage. But when some disobeyed the Prophet and left their posts, Quraysh struck back. Many were martyred, including the beloved uncle Hamza, R.A. The Quran reminded, Allah fulfilled His promise when you were killing them by His permission, until you lost courage and fell into dispute about the order and disobeyed. Surah Al-Imran 3:152. Lesson. Victory comes only with discipline and obedience to Allah and His Messenger. Battle of Khandaq, patience in hardship. When Quraysh and allies besieged Madinah, Muslims dug a trench around the city. Hunger and fear gripped them, yet they held firm. The Quran described it. When they came at you from above you and from below you, and when eyes shifted in fear, and hearts reached the throats, and you assumed about Allah various assumptions. Surah Al-Ahzab 33:10. But Allah's help arrived, sending winds and confusion among the enemy. Peace of Hudaybiyah, victory in patience. In the 6th year after Hijrah, the Prophet set out for Umrah. Quraysh blocked him, and a treaty was signed at Hudaybiyah, which seemed unfair to Muslims. Yet the Quran declared, greater than, indeed, we have given you a clear victory. Surah Al-Fath 48, 1. Within 2 years, Islam spread faster than ever. This treaty proved that patience and wisdom often bring greater results than immediate conflict. The Quran's transformation of society. Madinah under the Prophet became a living model of Quranic values. Justice. No one was above the law. Even disputes involving the Prophet himself were judged by the Quran. Charity. Zakat was established to support the poor and needy. Brotherhood. Racism and tribalism were abolished. Bilal R.A., a former slave, was honored as the caller to prayer. Family rights. Women received inheritance rights, marriage was regulated with justice, and kindness was emphasized. The Quran declared, greater than, indeed, Allah commands justice, good conduct, and giving to relatives and forbids immorality, bad conduct, and oppression. Surah An-Nahl 16, 90. The final phase in Madinah. By the 8th year after Hijrah, Islam was strong. Makkah was conquered peacefully, idols destroyed, and the Kaaba purified for the worship of Allah alone. In his farewell sermon, the Prophet summarized the Quran's mission. No superiority of Arab over non-Arab, or white over black, except by piety. Rights of women, slaves, and all humans must be honored. Hold firmly to the Quran and Sunnah, and you will never be misguided. 1. Quran is the Prophet's miracle. Unlike previous prophets who brought physical miracles, like the staff of Musa or the healing of Isa, the everlasting miracle of the Prophet is the Quran itself. It is not bound to time, it is fresh in every age. Its language is unmatched, its wisdom is beyond human ability, and its impact on hearts continues till today. Allah says, greater than, and indeed, we have sent down to you the book which is a clarification for all things, and a guidance and mercy and glad tidings for the Muslims. Surah An-Nahl 16, 89. This means that the Quran is not limited to the 7th century, it is for every moment until the day of judgment. 2. The Prophet is a living Quran. Aisha described the Prophet in these words. Greater than, his character was the Quran. Musnad Ahmad. This shows us that the Prophet was a practical tafsir of the Quran. His mercy, his patience, his justice, his forgiveness, all reflected the words of Allah. For us, this means we cannot separate love for the Prophet from obedience to the Quran. Whoever wants to follow him must also live by the Quran. 3. The universal message of dua. The Prophet's mission was not confined to Arabia, the Quran made it clear that his call is for all humanity. Greater than, and we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the worlds. Surah Al-Anbiya 21, 107. This is why the Prophet wrote letters to kings, invited tribes, and spread the message beyond borders. His dua was global, just as the Quran is universal.